Congratulations to Genshin Impact for being the only video game containing Kaedehara Kazuha. This Inazuman anemo wielder captured the hearts of every single player from the moment he set foot on screen. His endearing and beautiful way with words and his gentle, kind-hearted nature, with just a touch of trauma sprinkled in, truly makes the best recipe for everybody's favourite boy. Beidou put it perfectly when she said, "Occasionally he opens his mouth and flowers come out instead of words." Today we're here to look closely at Kazuha's outfit design, examine the historical influences behind its pieces, and analyse the colour theory and symbolism behind some of its more notable motifs. Like always, these are just a collection of observations I've found and pieced together. I'm by no means stating anything as fact. But if there's anything I missed or didn't include in this video, you're more than welcome to share your own thoughts and theories in the comments down below. Remember to like and subscribe as well while you're at it, it's much appreciated. Now with that out of the way, let's get started with an analysis of Kaedehara Kazuha and everything that makes his design so special and loved. Kazuha's outfit consists of a grey and white short-sleeved kimono, a long-sleeved coat, knee-length pants, black sandals with dark red socks, and black leg guards. Half of Kazuha's coat is worn on his left arm, with a flowing sleeve decorated with orange and red maple leaves, while the other half is draped behind his waist and secured by a belt over top. He also wears a black and red scarf with gold accents, and a strap that goes under his right arm and over his left shoulder, where his anemo vision is pinned. The vision is tied to a red tassel decoration next to some shoulder plating. Kazuha also wears black glove plates that protect the back of his hands. His right hand is also covered in bandages. The bulk of Kazuha's outfit is based on traditional garments worn by samurai. As is widely known, samurai were military nobility in medieval and early modern Japan, from the late 12th century until their abolition, around the late 1870s. These retainers were well paid by feudal landowners known as the daimyo, and they were held in very high regard. During the Kamakura shogunate in the 12th century, samurai became the ruling political class, but of course with great power came great responsibility. They proved their combat skills on numerous occasions while fighting as warriors, but later became stewards and chamberlains of the daimyo estates during the Edo period, gaining educational and managerial experience. Inazuma is pretty closely based on this time period, using the same word sakoku, meaning closure of country, to depict the strict political climate prohibiting people from leaving or entering. By the 19th century, in the Meiji period, modern militaries began to emerge, and the samurai were basically rendered obsolete. Maintaining their status was expensive, and they were moved into more entrepreneurial type roles, so they were kinda shafted, but not entirely. To this day, they are still hugely significant in Japanese popular culture, and arguably all across the globe. The traditional clothing, armour and weaponry hold particular importance in cultural history, and these of course are what we'll be delving further into here. Kazuha is a wandering samurai, or what is referred to as a ronin. The literal translation of this word is a person of the waves, and it traditionally described a samurai who had no master, or who had severed all ties with their family. In medieval times, the ronin were considered shadows of the samurai, masterless and therefore less honourable in people's eyes. In Kazuha's case, the collapse of his family's fortune and high status gave him a sigh of relief. His character story tells us that as far as he was concerned, this was a golden opportunity to begin living freely, wandering the mountains and forests while travelling light. The first piece of Kazuha's outfit we're going to look at in more detail is the jacket he wears over his kimono, known as a haori. I'm so sorry, I struggle with this word, I'm trying my best. The length reaches around the hip or thigh, and it is normally tied at the front with two short cords. I learned an interesting bit of information about this garment from when it became more popular among the lower merchant classes in the Edo period. Due to economic growth during this time, these classes found themselves with an influx of disposable income. Those in the ruling classes had imposed laws, known as edicts or sumptuary laws, which restricted lower classes from wearing clothing that would signify a higher status. So merchants, among others, were not permitted to wear lavish garments. As a way of getting around these laws, merchants began wearing haori with plain exteriors and intricate designs on the inner lining. This is a trend which can still be seen in men's haori to this day. Kazuha is not one of these wearers, however. His jacket's design is littered with fallen leaves and gold embellishment, reflecting his status and family nobility, despite the collapse of its wealth. Samurai would wear haori, donning their family crest as a protection against the elements. It wasn't until the Edo period that this garment became more widely worn amongst the general public. Something to note about the way Kazuha wears his haori is how one sleeve is tied behind his back, tucked into his belt. I did some digging into this, and found that it was actually a very common way for samurai to wear the jacket. It's mostly for practical use, so warriors could unsheath their swords and strike with no interference from a long and cumbersome piece of fabric. I do think this style lends itself to some aesthetic purposes as well though. The silhouette of Kazuha's outfit is very drapery focused, and the asymmetry of this leads the eye to wander downwards in an irregular shape, just like how a falling leaf would. This also allows us to see one of the sleeves of his kimono, which has a small design resembling a wisp of smoke or mist, fitting in with his characterization as an anemo user. The trousers Kazuha wears are a spin on traditional hakama. These were first worn by Chinese imperials in the Sui and Tang dynasties in the 6th and 7th centuries, the former being when the style was adopted by Japan. Typically, hakama are tied at the waist and fall to the ankles, however, Kazuha's are cut off just below his knees. Hakama became popular among samurai during the Kamakura period in the early 10th century, mostly for protection while horseback riding. Later, the garment became more of a status symbol for nobles and samurai alike. Remember earlier when we discussed samurai being decommissioned as military during the Meiji era? Well, when this occurred, the hakama were then adapted as a school uniform. This revolutionized the garment in a way, because education became open to all genders, where previously it was reserved solely for boys. Kazuha's hakama have some pleats at the front, back and sides. This is representative of traditional hakama that samurai wore, where each pleat had a corresponding name and meaning, signifying an ideal characteristic that they should possess. Yuki represented courage, Jin represented kindness and benevolence, Gi represented justice, honor and integrity, Rei stood for etiquette and courtesy, Makoto represented sincerity and honesty, Shugi symbolized loyalty and devotion, and finally, Meiyo stood for dignity, prestige, and glory. Kazuha's belt is a type of kaku obi, a traditional belt worn by samurai that served a dual purpose of securing a sword in place. On his belt, Kazuha also wears some decorative maple leaf ornaments, and a tassel known as an agimaki. The agimaki, while serving as an attachment point on some samurai armor pieces, also refers to a type of knot we can see Kazuha wearing on his chest and the back of his shoulder where his anemo vision is secured. This type of knot is seen frequently in Buddhism, signifying the never-ending cycle of life and smooth sailing with minimal suffering. It's sort of similar to the good luck knot we looked at in my analysis of Yelan's design in a previous video. Kazuha's shoes most closely resemble zori, traditionally made from straw, cloth, lacquered wood and leather. Underneath these, he wears tabi, which are a type of sock dating back to the 15th century that have a split at the toes to make wearing sandals more comfortable. Covering his socks are kyahan leg guards, which were a type of padding worn by samurai under their armor. They could also be worn by ordinary travelers as protection against the elements, insects, and tall grass or thorns. The piece of armor on Kazuha's left shoulder is known as a sode. It has a traditional plated structure and is worn on the non-dominant side of his body, to keep his other arm free for swordsmanship while protecting himself from oncoming strikes. Taking a closer look at this piece, it also appears to have the same wisp-type pattern seen on the sleeve of his kimono, perhaps to reflect the swiftness of his movements while in combat. A standout piece of Kazuha's design is his bandaged right hand. While at first glance it's easy to assume this is to protect his hand from extensive sword use or forging blades, the real reason is a bit more gut-wrenching. Other keen-eyed Genshin players may have also picked up on this, but during the cutscene where Kazuha is recounting the execution of his friend by the Raiden Shogun, we see him taking his friend's vision and fleeing the scene. If we look very closely at the frame showing him reaching for the vision, his right hand has no bandages on it. As the vision loses its master, it burns brightly and intensely in Kazuha's right hand, while he continues to grip it tightly, grimacing in pain. From this, we can assume his hand was burnt pretty badly, meaning he would need to keep that hand covered in bandages going forward. It was from that moment that Kazuha became a fugitive, fleeing from his homeland during the Vision Hunt Decree, a masterless samurai keeping hold of a now masterless vision. It's difficult to overlook the imagery that springs to mind when looking at Kazuha's outfit. Falling scarlet, crimson and golden leaves that are fleeting and easily swept away by the increasingly chilly breezes, appreciated for their beauty and gentleness while reminding us that life can begin anew once again. I want to delve into the significance of maple leaves and the place they hold in literary history a bit later in this video, but first I want to take a closer look at some colour theory relating to Kazuha. A blanket of crunchy autumn leaves littering the ground is one of the coziest things I can picture, and the colour palette of red and golden shades lends itself to the same feeling. Much like the feeling I think many of us can admit to whenever Kazuha makes an appearance in the game's story and events. He's just a sweet little guy. The colour red, or more specifically scarlet or crimson, represents traits such as devotion, sacrifice, courage, passion, dedication and warmth. If it is someone's preferred shade, it can signify alertness, a preference for the outdoors, and being ruled by positive emotions. Kazuha is undoubtedly someone who has sacrificed a lot throughout his life, and could get weighed down by the burdens of his past. However, he has managed to push through, allowing himself to instead be led by his passion for the beauty and authenticity of nature, for which he has always possessed a heightened sense. As is stated in his character story, to Kazuha, nature had never been silent. It had always spoken to him, conveying its feelings in its own unique language. These are the unique poetics that nature has bestowed upon him, and Kazuha was never one to be preoccupied with luxury anyway. So, if the burden of family responsibility should drop from his shoulders, why not go wandering and travel light? Black is another prominent colour seen throughout Kazuha's outfit, symbolising elegance, formality, mystery, prestige, and intelligence. It also evokes strong emotions, and is associated with periods of mourning in some cultures. I think it can easily be said that Kazuha's personality is somewhat aloof, not at all in the sense that he's unfriendly, quite the opposite, but more so that he can come across a bit distant and mysterious with how swiftly he moves from one spot to the next. His past traumas and burdens have led him to keep his guard up somewhat. However, his intelligent and intuitive nature can quickly determine whether someone is trustworthy. If he deems you as such, you can be sure that his presence will always be a blessing, no matter how fleeting it may be. Many gold embellishments can be seen throughout Kazuha's outfit, on the sleeves of his jacket, on the scarf he wears, and some of the metal attachments on his belt and armour pieces. Golden shades represent traits such as optimism, achievement, triumph, wisdom, enlightenment, and wealth. Remember back in my analysis of Tighnari's outfit when we looked at his gold earring and the wealth of knowledge this represents for him? I think in Kazuha's case, this wealth is the freedom he has sought out and allowed himself to have. His caring nature and ability to self-reflect so deeply has led him to triumph over his past woes, and become a loyal and dependable figure in others' lives. He has achieved many great things throughout his life, and has remained humble during every step of his journey. The shades of white and grey Kazuha wears in some places, along with his hair of course, represent the purity of his heart and the integrity he possesses. White in particular denotes imagery such as a blank sheet of paper, holding a story not yet told, leaving the mind open to freely create. The desire for a new beginning was expressed by Kazuha while musing about his recent exploits just after he had been taken in by Beidou's fleet. Trouble still found him from time to time, but no issue was insurmountable with the support of the Crux crew. From his vantage point on the Alcor's crow's nest, gazing out at the sea and sky, he finally had the space to think over the tumultuous events of his past and what it all meant to him. Every samurai wishes to live their life with passion and to claim the greatest reputation possible using the sword in their hands. But there will always be those whose base desires lead them astray from the path of justice and virtue, and whose blades leave an endless trail of enmity in their wake. Surely the heavens did not give us fleshy forms, and the gods did not watch over our lives, all so that we might take up arms against one another. Then this sword I wield is not meant to slay, but to save. Yes, this shall be my path as a samurai, and I shall defend it all my days. By far the most standout image of Kazuha's outfit design and his entire kit is maple leaves. These deciduous trees hold a very special place across many different cultures, symbolising balance, longevity, abundance, strength, and endurance. Of course, the most notable characteristic of their leaves is the ability to change colour during the autumn months, representing transformation, adaptability, and eternal life. Japanese maple trees are officially known as Acer palmatum, which is also the name of Kazuha's constellation. The direct translation of this is sharp and hand-shaped. Bet you thought you could escape another round of plant facts in this video, huh? Well, too bad! In Japan, maple trees are particularly revered during autumn. Similar to the Hanami festival that takes place every spring to appreciate sakura trees, every autumn people will take part in an activity known as momiji-gari. This involves going for walks through nature, observing the fiery display of colours from the maple trees, and often writing poetry or painting. Those who take part in these walks are encouraged to branch off from the beaten path whenever inspiration strikes. These trees' cultural association with peace, grace, and serenity allow observers the opportunity to pause and self-reflect. This time of year also reminds us that life, among everything, is ephemeral, and the gifts we are given are there to be enjoyed before they vanish. Maple trees as a subject have held much significance in art and literature for many years. Ukiyo-e paintings are just one popular medium where this art is expressed. Ukiyo-e, directly translating to pictures of the floating world, are a type of traditional woodblock print that typically depict picturesque scenes of nature. The beautiful foliage and ornamental qualities of maple trees are rich in symbolism, evoking emotions of strength, hope, and reflection. In some paintings, no human figures are depicted. This is known as a motif of absence, allowing the viewer to imagine themselves in the scene, admiring the autumn foliage at the peak of its crimson brightness. Similarly, poetry is another creative outlet, rich with imagery and references of maple trees. They are oftentimes used as a metaphor for the changing seasons and the impermanence of life. Matsuo Basho became Japan's best-known haiku poet after the death of his father, who was a samurai. He refined the 17-syllable haiku format into more of an artistic expression of image and authenticity, compressing worldly experiences and observations into subtle literary imagery. He had many works about maple leaves, observing the humanity they represent and how their scattered nature can be linked with life's impermanence. Their presence is fleeting, but that forces us to soak in their beauty before they're gone, with the promise of returning again in the endless cycle of seasons. Leaves. Some the wind scatters on the ground, so too the race of men. Such things as these cherished tears, colouring scattered maple leaves. Let the universe be your companion, bearing in mind the true nature of things, mountains and rivers, trees and grass, and humanity. And enjoy the falling blossom and scattered leaves, autumn leaves, falling leaves of red and gold, scattered leaves outside my window, written about in song and poem. A last hurrah, a winsome remembrance before winter's wind comes along. As for my personal thoughts on this character, oh, I have many. Upon first meeting him in the main story, and soon after learning his backstory, he resonated with me very deeply. Witnessing the way he speaks about grief and his overall outlook on life is nothing short of inspiring and uplifting. It's truly a testament to his purity of heart and his desire to begin life anew, while upholding the legacies of those he holds close. Each piece of his design holds so much meaning, further solidifying his strength, beauty, and endurance, both physical and emotional. I think this is the reason he is held in such high regard among the fanbase. Many of us can relate to his troubles and learn from his actions, particularly the way he treats others with such kindness and grace. When a loved one is lost, we try so hard to grasp onto their memory, allowing it to burn so bright in our hearts that they may never truly leave. That love we held for them lives on through us and is carried forth through our own actions. As someone who has also lost a close friend, Kazuha's story holds a very special place in my heart. And I won't lie, writing this script has been an extremely cathartic experience for me. Right around the time I'll be posting this video is actually that friend's anniversary. I didn't intend for that to be the case, but as fate would have it, here we are. So with that sentiment in mind, I'd like to dedicate this video to him, and anyone watching this who has gone through the same thing. The love you still hold for them will never burn out, and I truly hope you can someday find peace in your heart. Oh, okay. Sorry for getting a bit emotional there. But seriously, I really hope I did Kazuha justice in this video. I worked particularly hard to really pour my heart into this one, and focus on wording things as beautifully as I could. Did flowers start pouring out of your screen instead of words? If they did, please let me know. Like I briefly mentioned earlier, if you have any further info or theories you'd like to share, or if there's something glaringly obvious or obscure that I missed, please always feel welcome to write it in the comments. I mentioned this in a community tab post a while ago, but my number one goal with this channel is to nurture a space where others can feel comfortable to share their own thoughts and ideas. So please, don't be shy. If you liked this video and would like to see more, you can give it a thumbs up and subscribe to show support. It's hugely appreciated. To keep up with progress updates and other fun things, you can follow my Twitter linked in the description below as well. And with that, I hope you all have an amazing day, stay safe wherever you are, and I'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye!